Hey, welcome back to episode 32 of the Cellarcast. Where the fuck are... There we go. There we go. My magnets are all the way over on my bed. Okay. Now I can make it through the whole thing. Yeah, I'm happy to announce I'm officially COVID-free, baby. I got hair in my mouth. Officially COVID-free. I got my testing last Tuesday. I got my results a few days later, and I'm negative. So I was able to go out and do stuff. I got to see Kat for the first time in 3 weeks. So that was cool. I showed her Barry J. Gillis's Wicked World. And if you know what that movie is, it was a time. Of all the times that have been, it was definitely one of them. I love that movie. I love that movie so much. Someone's moving around outside my room. Anyway, there was some interesting news this week. But before we get into that, we're going to do the comment review, baby. So our first question comes from Lozy. He says, happy for the people getting rid of Bobby Kotick, but sad that his podcast segments, this podcast segments may be one of the last. Yeah, it might be the last Blizzard block. Why don't you monetize the Yakuza video? I know you don't monetize your videos, but you could make exceptions for those that explode in views. That is a good question. So I've said before that I don't put ads on my videos. I'm going through Patreon. But it does, it warrants the question. So the reason I don't monetize the Yakuza video is because I can't. I cannot. Because it's copyright claimed. There's my top 2 videos, the 2 videos I have with the most views, the Sega Yakuza video and the Konami E3 video, both have copyright claims on them, which means that when you see ads on them, the money does not go to me. It goes to the copyright holders. So in case you're curious, I can pull up... In case you're curious, I can pull up the... geez Louise, I have to switch over to the account. The actual claims. One moment for me. So if I literally just sort it by views. Sega and the actual Yakuza views 142,470 copyright claim. Konami E3 2010, where are they now? 18,056 views, copyright claim. After that is the PlayStation one, no copyright. What other copyright claims do I have? I have a copyright claim on Elf Bowling. What do I have a copyright claim on Elf Bowling for? What? Oh yeah, it was a stupid song that I used of the Mongolian throat singing. But specifically I want to talk about, obviously my 2 most viewed videos. So when I was making the Konami video, I was pretty certain that I was going to get copyright claimed, because I had used a song in the outro that was, it's called Final Land by an artist called Gutevolk. So there was so part of the video was, or part of the conference was a presentation for a game called, it wasn't a presentation, it was just a trailer. It was called Lost in Shadow, I believe. And the main title theme of that game was by an artist called Gutevolk. They are a Japanese artist who has a, I believe, Swedish name. And I heard this song, I thought it was really cool sounding, and I went and, in 3 days, I went and listened to 3 of her albums or something like that, a bunch of her stuff. She's a great artist. It's Gutevolk. She has this album called Suomi from 2003, Suomi. And there's a song off of it called Final Land that I was listening to a lot while I was making that video. And I thought that it matched the tone, the kind of sort of melancholic tone at the end of that video that it sort of concludes with. Such cool music. I would highly recommend you check out Göteborg. It's even hard to describe what it's like. It's like weird, twinkly, old experimental music, but so cool. So I used that song, and I was expecting to get claimed, but I didn't care because it was like my 5th video or something. So yeah, and then I mean that video exploded. Also, I got a claim for using. Wait, hang on. I didn't even get a claim for that. What? I never got a claim for the Göteborg song. I got a claim for using Hymnopedia number 1, I think it is. It's during the La Parka segment, I think, while I'm talking about his death. And it's Hymnopedia number, whichever one it is. It's the ba 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 ba. It's that one. You've heard it before. Yeah, so that got copyright claimed. Okay. Weird. Apparently it's owned by Sony Music Entertainment. I totally thought it was the Göteborg song. No, it was Trois Hymnopédies. Yeah, Première Hymnopédie. So I guess it was, I think it's the first one, because it's Première. And then second one, the Yakuza video was like, it was kind of stupid, right? Yeah, okay. So the Yakuza video was stupid because the song that got claimed there was Focus by 9 Inch Nails. And if you know the 9 Inch Nails, you're like, do they have a song called Focus? What is that? So I used a song off of the Quake soundtrack called Focus. I think it's the first level theme. Well, I mean, you know, music gets reused in that game a lot, but it's kind of like a high-pitched, kind of creepy synth sound because, you know, it's a video about crime. And so there's a segment where I use that, and I'd used that song before. I've used it in a few videos, actually, but this is the only one that got claimed. And I don't know why. It might have been because I used it... Did I really use it for 5 minutes, like it's saying here? I was confused as to why this one got claimed. And the best theory that I could come up with was that it was right after the Quake remaster came out. And I believe as part of the Quake remaster, the soundtrack might have had some kind of re-release or something like that. So there might have just been some, like, refreshed, like, putting it into the copyright system, because if you don't know, 9 Inch Nails and Trent Reznor did do, I think Trent Reznor composed the soundtrack for Quake, and then 9 Inch Nails performed it, or, like, 2 of them banged it out. So it is technically, like, copyrighted under them. So yeah, literally my 2 highest rated videos, or highest viewed videos, are copyright claims. So if you see ads on there, it's all going to the claimants. And I thought this question was this is a good question, actually, because I don't know if I've talked about it, but I think it bears just repeating if I have, and I think it's good to go over about, like, my ideas about monetization. So, like, I feel when I'm making a video, I don't want to have the pressure of I'm going to get copyright claimed if I use this, because I know I'm not like copyright, in my opinion. Copyright claims should be for videos that just blatantly, like, re-upload entire movies or something like that, right? That's what it should be for. Me using a song for an emotional effect, because that's the song I want to use. I don't want to have my, I guess maybe I sound like a diva, my creative process influenced by this stupid, archaic legal idea that has not been updated to the internet age. I don't want to have that just in my head at all. So I don't make decisions with that in mind. So that's one reason. There's a few other reasons that there's a few reasons that I went with Patreon and I guess crowdfunding is what you would call it over monetization. And the first one is that it's pretty simple. It's that I don't like ads. I don't like ads anywhere. And I think they're annoying. And I don't want my viewers to have to watch ads. But then you're like, oh, but if the video gets claimed, then they're going to see ads. Except if you use an ad blocker. And that leads to my second point, which is that I use an ad blocker. Right? I've been using an ad blocker for probably over 10 years at this point. I use it on all my stuff. I have it on my browser. I have an ad blocker on my phone because I have an Android, so I can just download an APK for that. I use Blockada Sim, or however it's pronounced. And then for YouTube, I use YouTube Advanced, which is a YouTube front end. It's another APK, and part of the features it adds is an ad blocker, because ad blocker doesn't work on the mobile version of YouTube. So I block ads on all my stuff. I want to see as few advertisements as possible. And I don't like them. I think they're annoying. So I think it would be kind of hypocritical of me to use an ad blocker and then ask that my audience don't, so that I can make money. It doesn't sit right with me. I would feel actively bad about it. You know, insert the clip of Linkara going, "Oh, please let the ads play." You know, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to put my viewers in a situation where you have to make what feels like an ethical choice between supporting this creator you like and annoying, and like it's like this ethical, like, yeah, I should, but I have to watch ads. Like, I want to skip that entirely. I'd like to skip that whole process, that whole like mental battle of what you want to do like ethically versus your convenience. I think we can have both. And we can happily coexist through something like Patreon. And I'll take maybe a potential smaller amount of money. I don't know how much I would be making off of YouTube AdSense. And then my third point, which is a little more like getting on to why specifically... Actually, no, this whole thing has been why specifically something like, a Patreon. So I can't say that. But on a broader sense, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you about my life. So I believe I first started using YouTube. I think I first interacted with YouTube in like 2000, I want to say 8 or 9. Hang on. Probably 9. Yeah, probably 2009. When like my mom pulled up a video on her laptop on YouTube, and it was like a silly cat video or something like that. I got my first computer when I was 8, and since then, I think it was for my birthday, so it was in January. And since then, I have used YouTube almost every single day of my life for the last 12 years. For the majority of my life, I have used YouTube almost every single day, barring days where I have something that takes up the whole day, or I go camping for a week or something like that, or camping for a few days or something like that. I use this website that you're listening to this right now on every day. It is an ingrained part of my lifestyle for the majority of my time on this earth. And this website is run terribly. It is run so poorly. I've seen the progression from 2010 to 2022, and it's bad. It's really bad. Google, everyone at YouTube, Susan Wendigo, they are unimaginably lucky, blessed even, that they have a platform with so many talented, passionate people who add value. My fucking God. What these companies fail to understand, I think what Google and YouTube fails to understand, is that their users, their biggest problem is that they're so incompetent at their jobs that they have had to rely for the past 2005 or 6? It was founded in 2005. Since 2005, so for the past... Fuck, this is so embarrassing. 17 years, they have had to rely. They have not been good enough at their jobs to add value to the website themselves, and they've had to rely on basically volunteer contractors to do it for them. And they have been immensely successful. They've never turned a profit, but they have been immensely successful in becoming the monopolistic force on video streaming industry, which is just them. And it's all because of their creators. They are so bad at their jobs that they cannot... Okay, let me give you an example. So on the YouTube desktop version, whatever, fucking, you know what I'm talking about. On desktop YouTube, you got all these little icons, right? For their menus, their UIs and all that. They made a change like a few months back where all of the visual design of all the icons was that it was images, icons that were just filled in. So I use the dark mode, so for me it's literally it's like a bell. It's a bell with a... It's a bell that was white. It was a white bell icon. They made a change where they said, okay, instead of it being filled in white, what if it was negative space? What if it was empty? And I just logged on one day, and all of the icons were negative spaced. And it's... Okay, this is really small. Let's take this... Okay, so right next to the little notification icon is the little... It's called YouTube Apps. It's a grid of... it's a 3x3 grid of squares. It used to just be 9 dots, essentially. 9 little squares. And now it's 9 dots that are empty on the inside, and they only fill in when you click on them. Most of the time, you are not clicking on that. I can't even... Me clicking on it right now is probably the first time I've clicked on it in maybe 5 years. I don't know when they added that. And all this visual change serves to do for the 100 to maybe 99.9% of the time is make it look slightly more cluttered. It's just a little bit more visually busy than it needs to be, and it just looks a little bit uglier. Instead of just... They could have easily kept it filled in white and then just made it turn red when you click on it, like the YouTube branding. But for some reason, they decided on this. Red would be a lot more, I don't know, it was probably a lot more visually pleasing. I don't know. It would be more, I don't know. defined. I couldn't say it would be more defined, but, you know, or maybe it would clash with the notification thing. But it doesn't even matter, because when you get a notification, it's red, and then you click on it, and the notification goes away. So who cares? And it's crazy, because if I fucking go to... No, it doesn't do that. I thought the ones on the side turned red on the sidebar. No, they don't do that. And I don't know why. I don't know why they went with that. Okay? And this is a really small, petty example of what I'm talking about. But it's like kind of it's a microcosm of just the general direction of tiny incremental changes that make the website worse over time. That I have only noticed because I've been on here for 12 years. And, I mean, do I trust these people with my money? Do I trust them to pay me? No. I've seen videos, I've heard horror stories of people who just had their AdSense accounts randomly give money to accounts that are not theirs and basically lock them out of their AdSense for months at a time. And then when they contact YouTube support, I just choked on my own spit. When they contact YouTube, I'm slobbering so much, YouTube support, they go, "Oh, that's not a problem." What? We don't know. I don't want to deal with that at all. I want to get it's the only game in town, unfortunately. Right. So if I want to do this, I kind of have to do it here. But I would like to, if I can, I would like to diversify my revenue stream as far away from them as possible. I do not want my money to be... I do not want to... Pardon me. I will rely upon this poorly run website to work. Or to get paid, you know? Doesn't sound fun to me. Not a good idea. So, in short, that is why I don't monetize my videos. I hope that answers your question, and it's also why a little explanation for why I use Patreon instead. I should probably say that at the end of this podcast. We have another comment from Gus Leal, who says, "Nice to see you're back. So, I'm kind of curious after hearing about Xbox and Microsoft deal. I know you're a PC player, but do you have any consoles? Are you looking forward to any new console release?" So good question. I play everything on PC. There is technically a PS4 in this house, but it's basically my brother's. We sort of shared it for the time that we used to like live with our dad and our mom, and we would go back and forth between their households, and it was always, the PS4 was always at our mom's house, and then a few years ago we just moved over to living with our dad full time. We brought it over, and I really don't have a use for it. So technically there is a console in this house, but I don't use it. I don't buy games for it. Am I looking forward to any new console release? My immediate answer was no, but then I thought about it, and I should look this up just to make sure. So I wasn't planning on buying a PS5. However, the trailer for Final Fantasy XVI came out, and I watched it, and my first thought after watching it was, if this game is a PS5 exclusive, I'm going to buy a PS5. Let's double check. It's a timed exclusive. Perfect. I can wait. I'm a patient guy. According to Reddit, for at least 6 months. Okay. So, technically, yes. Two technically yes answers. Technically, yes, there is a console in this house, but I don't use it. It's in my brother's room. I'm not going in there. And am I looking forward to any new console releases? Technically, yes, but only for 6 months. I just don't have a lot of games that are console exclusives that I need to play. Unfortunately for me, Japanese publishers are now starting to look at the PC market as actually a viable alternative, or not an alternative, but something that they can actually dip into. Like we saw that now PlayStation has games on Steam. And I think we'll see more of that because they're recognizing that the PC market is distinct from the console market. And we're going to see more, what would you call it? Diversifying into it, and them realizing that it's not hurting their bottom line. In fact, it's helping them to publish their games on PC because it's just giving them more income. It's just a new stream of income for people who otherwise would have never touched, a game like God of War 2018 just because they don't have a console or something like that. I don't know. We're also starting to see competent PC ports for Japanese games becoming the norm, which at one point they were not. I still have a shaky trust with like ports of Japanese games, but they've been getting pretty good recently. So yeah, that's the 2 questions for the week. Thank you guys. Thank you. I wanted to start this off with a quick little in memoriam. John Galt has passed away. He passed away yesterday. It was announced on the official 3D Realms Twitter account. If you don't know, he was probably most well known for voicing Lo Wang in the original Shadow Warrior, and here they say, and Grandfather Anisi in Prey 2006. If you look up John Galt, all you get is just Ayn Rand. His full name is John William Galt, so you kind of have to. He has a pretty interesting career. He has a bunch of random TV credits. Let's see what's he got. A lot of voice roles and one-off things. He's in Forrest Gump as the voice of President Johnson. Yeah, so he plays Lo Wang in Shadow Warrior, and does he have any other video game roles? Doesn't really look like. Oh, he's in Deus Ex as a bunch of. Okay, so in the 90s he was actually did have quite a few game roles. So Lo Wang, he was in a game called Nocturne. Do I know this game? Survival horror action adventure set in the 1930s. What the fuck? This game sounds kind of cool. He was in Deus Ex as a bunch of a couple voices. Joseph Manderley. I haven't gotten around to Deus Ex yet, so maybe that means something. He was in Daikatana as the main villain, Kage Mishima. Or is he the protagonist? No, he's the villain. He was in, yeah. So he had a couple game roles, but it looks like he he actually had a lot of voice roles in Cyanide and Happiness. That's kind of interesting. Lo Wang is potentially a controversial character, but it is a classic, and he's a part of history. So it's a shame that he 1940 to 2022, and I'm gonna have to bust out the calculator because I'm a freaking tool. He was 82. So he got a good couple of years. He got a good couple of years in. And hey, you can always play Shadow Warrior on either the Classic version or the Redux. Classic is free. You can go play it right now, and then just install it and then play it through Void Shadow Warrior or Void SW, which is a source port that comes with eduke. That's how I would recommend it. Yeah, so just a quick thing. And then I want to get into an update on the... Did that come off as callous? I don't know. People's deaths don't tend to hit me very hard. I don't know. He was 82. Though I feel like the more that I talk, the more like awful I'm gonna sound. But yeah, I do respect him a lot. I think he is a good voice actor. Yeah. I just wanted to mention it because I enjoyed Shadow Warrior for how dickish that game is. And Lo Wang is one of the classic boomer shooter characters, so you gotta give it up for him, you know. I mean, fuck, if Stephen Waite passed, I'd be like, shit, you know. That would affect me. That would affect me. I want to move on to an update on the Raven Software Union. Yeah, I was kind of hopeful when I left off. When we last left off with that. Maybe not so hopeful anymore. So it was funny, almost immediately after I uploaded that video, felt like, I saw an update to the story. So if you recall, members of the QA department at Raven Software, which is the developer... Oh, do they develop Warzone right now? Pretty sure they do. They were going on strike, and they wanted to form a union, which I think is warranted because QA testing is seen as disposable when it should be a very, like, invaluable part of the development process, and they definitely need more recognition than they get. They should be paid well, and they were basically saying, hey, you know, we're working for one of the biggest companies in the entertainment industry, and for some reason we're not being paid enough to eat. What the fuck is with that? So they say, hey, we want a union, and that was where we last left off. So let's see what would have happened after I uploaded. So they called off the strike, but they were asking for the union. They were negotiating for it. January 24th, literally the day that the podcast went up, Raven Software QA testers told they will be split into various departments across the studios. So, essentially, let me read this off from the IGN article. So, on the afternoon of January 24th, 23 Raven Software QA testers, all of whom had received promotions to become full-time in December 2021, were told that they would be split into various departments across the studio, including animation, art, audio design, engineering, and live operations production. So they just took all the strikers and they split them into different departments. So Wilma Liebman, the former chairman of the National Labor Relations Board under former President Barack Obama, said in a statement to the Washington Post that this could be a move by Activision Blizzard management. This could be a move to dilute the group of potential unionizers by moving them around. It could be, you know? It could be. I don't know. I think that there's a very good faith reason that they did that immediately after they asked for fair treatment. So the union would have a decent, quote, the union would have a decent case to make that by doing this on the heels of a request for recognition and on the heels of all this union organizing activity, that this was somehow unlawful, intended to kill the union strength. I would say that having, so this is Liebman, the National Labor Relations Board lady, I would say that having seen these kinds of things many times, that there's possibly more afoot here than meets the eye. So the CWA agreed with Liebman's words and shared their own statement on the matter. So yesterday, Activision Blizzard broadcasted their plans to restructure the Raven Software Quality Assurance Department in order to bring the group, this is what ActiBliz said, into alignment with the best practices of other prominent Activision studios, which is really funny when you read that as not paying them as much. So this announcement, which came 3 days after Raven QA workers publicly requested recognition of their union, the Game of Workers Alliance says CWA, but that's a GWA. I don't know why it's called the CWA. Is nothing more than a tactic to thwart Raven QA workers who are exercising their right to organize, which it is. So, yeah, basically, it's really funny. It's really funny because you could just... One of my favorite stories that's kind of uplifting is when Nintendo was having a tough time. They have a tough time. They have a tough time in during the Wii U era and the early 3DS era, where they basically screwed up marketing the Wii U, and the 3DS had a bad launch library, and it took a few years for the 3DS to build up a good library, right? So in that period, Nintendo was not making a lot of money. And you know what Iwata did? He took like a 40% pay cut while he was like president CEO of the company. He took a 40% pay cut. That's absurd for the CEO of any company, right? And I believe Miyamoto and Reggie and I don't think technically, I don't know about Sakurai, but at least Miyamoto and Reggie, the other big dogs, they all took pay cuts of somewhere from 20 to 30%. And guess what? They survived. And the reason that they did this, that they took these cuts, is because basically, I totally 100% agree with this. Iwata was spitting facts when he said this. He said, Nintendo is going to get out of this hole by making good products. And you can't make good products if you are constantly in fear that you're going to lose your job. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. If you're worried, which is almost the direct opposite of what a lot of these crunch culture companies that you see in the game industry go by, where their thing is, oh, if we just crack the whip hard enough, if we just put that pressure on them, the monkeys will work faster. The gerbil will spin the wheel faster. It'll run faster. And Iwata said, nope. That's how you make a shitty game. That's how you make a bad product. And you start losing ground and going into a death spiral. Which was very perceptive of him. So he said, it's much better if I just take a small hit to my income now. And then in a few years, we'll be back above water, and I can go back to making what I did before. And guess what? I will survive. We will all be okay. And it's better for everyone. And guess what? After the Wii U, they dropped the Switch. And a lot of really good games. And they started making a lot of money. And all of a sudden, taking a 20% pay cut, 30% pay cut, whatever, for 3-4 years didn't matter at all. Guess what? It was completely made back by the huge money you made in the long term. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine prioritizing long-term sustainability over short-term growth and profits. Imagine that. A revolutionary idea. All of the people working QA at Raven could easily be paid handsomely for the very valuable work that they do. But they're not. And why? because we don't want to. When these things like anti-work, which is kind of funny to bring up because that Fox News thing that happened. When the anti-work thing like started getting big, there was this like kind of reevaluation of the state of like modern, like the at least American job market. And there's this really fascinating change in philosophy or management, where instead of like the top of the food chain makes enough money, right? It becomes, what if we could make more money? And it's like, well, there's not enough money to make, right? The ceiling actually isn't that high. So like, what do? What you do is you just fucking squeeze. I'm like clenching my fist right now and like pulling it up like I'm milking a Go-Gurt. You just squeeze as much fucking money as you can to the very top. To the very top. Until the rest of the organism is a shriveled, limp, lifeless thing that's just barely staying in, and you just fucking get as much up at the top as possible until the head is just swollen and meandering and complacent, and everything directly underneath is just hanging on, blowing in the wind like a shriveled carcass. It's a very extreme imagery. That's what you do. You just fucking squeeze it. And just this like, the reality is that there's not really a need. You can be very wealthy and very comfortably wealthy and ensure comfort not just for you and your family, but multiple generations of your family, right? That's a very noble thing to want, really. Like, there's a point where you can do that, and then you can kind of take your foot off the gas and just kind of coast along, like, I don't know, like Bill Gates. Bill Gates just can't stop making money, right? He literally cannot stop being a gazillionaire. And he doesn't have to, like, make more windows, right? He can just kind of sit on it and just live out the rest of his life and know that, like, his entire family for the rest of time will be set. Like, he is, like, in terms of wealth, like, setting a precedent, he is the, what am I thinking of? Like, the fucking Rockefeller of right now, right? Or the fucking, like, who's like a really old, rich dynasty. I don't know, whatever royal thing where they just made a bunch of money like 500 years ago and it just kept them going. He's that, right? That's a noble thing to want. Just so that you can ensure comfort and opportunities for your family, right? And then there's a point after that, which is what people like Bobby Kotick are at. Not that he makes more money than Bill Gates, but you know, they're both past the threshold that they need to be, where it's like, why do you still need to make money? Because I like it. Because I want to. I think for someone like Bobby Kotick, making money is a way of life. It's not just a thing he does or a means to an end. It is the end. And the things that he spends it on are just whatever, you know? I already made it. It's like these people, you know, who are craftsmen, like master craftsmen, and they spend 50 hours creating a cabinet, out of wood that they fucking chopped down from the forest, and they brought it back in, and they spent 50 hours carving and sanding and polishing and engraving all of these details into the most gorgeous cabinet you've ever seen. And for them, the cabinet is nice. It was, it was the end product, but really the reason they do it is not because they need a cabinet. It's just their way of life. It's how they exist, and it's how their soul performs its function in their body, is making this cabinet. That's Bobby Kotick and making money. There is no reason that you could not pay these people well. You just don't want to. You just want the comfort, the luxury. It's difficult to say because I'm a little peon, and I'm not in any kind of similar position to people like this. So I can't really get in their heads. I haven't talked to someone like this. It's just, you can only really speculate. Like, what are your motives? Like, what are your intents? Did something happen to you when you were a child? Like, what is going on? So it's kind of a bummer that that this happened. That this had to happen, and Activision is transparently basically trying to split them up, trying to weaken the union effort. Like, imagine that. Imagine making as much money as they must, right? They're the Warzone company. They're the Warzone developer. And some of them ask for just some better pay, for some better treatment, for some benefits, and you could easily fulfill those things, right? Easily. With no significant... You're not going to be out on the street. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm going to be living out of a box if I pay these QA testers nicely. I'm just... Oh my fucking god. You are... And like your first reaction is fuck, split them up, move them around. They're trying to get a former union. Oh, fuck. It's like when Activision hired a company to they hired a law firm to do their own investigation, and it was fucking the one that Ian Hazakostas used to work at, which was notorious for busting unions. Like, really? People want to stop getting molested at work, and your first thought is, oh, fuck, they're gonna make a union, ah, fuck. Just, you devil. you, what the fuck is wrong with you? Jeez Louise, man. It's unfortunate, It's unfortunate. I hope that the union effort continue. Was there a single update? Okay. January 25th, 2022. Activision Blizzard will not voluntarily recognize Raven Software's union. So basically what happened was, right, so I did pre-read this, so basically what happened was Blizzard said, well, we respect your right, because they're legally obligated to say that they respect their right to form a union. We respect your right to form a union. But, we reviewed the request, and we could not come to an agreement. Which I'm sure meant they wanted a union, and we didn't. So it's a, it's a critical... what would you call that? Miscommunication? An impasse, Critical impasse. So guess what? Then Raven said, okay, no, but you are going to want this. We are going to make you want this. And So they're doing as much as they can. They're filing a petition. And they're not giving up, which they shouldn't. They should not. If we set a precedent, there should be a precedent that it's not cool to just abuse your employees. It should be the precedent, and for too long it hasn't been. And for the last 10 years, I've been listening to stories of game developers who have just been horribly mistreated because their managers are bad and greedy or incompetent. Some mixture of all three, you know? So, let's go, hoorah. You know, watch this story develop and it actually comes out that their union was a horrible idea or something like that. That would be really funny. I'll eat my hat. It's funny because I don't even have a hat. You think I'm a hat guy? I'm not a hat guy. I want to bring up something, and it's related to Guilty Gear. So Baiken came out. I tried her out, and this is the most reworked her kit has ever been. This is the most different she has ever been. I still don't like her gameplay-wise. Just not into it. She's an interesting character. And what is so interesting is I was kind of speculating in her pre-release on the last episode on, like, you know, some of the changes. But this is the most different she's ever been. It's also the most accessible she's ever been. And there were notable like things that you could pick up on to tell you that that's the direction they were moving. So if you don't know, Baiken has always been a super popular character in Guilty Gear. She's a fan favorite. She's kind of like a developer favorite too. She always feels like she gets kind of premium treatment with her, like, just like she's like a secret boss in the first game. She's like, she gets like these crazy, she has like the best instant kill in Exerd. She always feels like the bar for her is like always a little higher in terms of quality. So, you know, the first 3 DLC characters came out, you know, no new stages. Baiken, she's got a brand new stage, and it is gorgeous. It's like a bridge. It's a Japanese bridge during sunset. And the next scene is like a forest with the sunlight like streaming through. It's got these gorgeous autumn colors, and then the third scene is like farmland. It looks like with a view of the mountains behind it. Just you know, this landscape in view. Just this gorgeous like sunset stage. Amazing. Her theme is killer. It's super cool. It does still have some elements, some references to Momentary Life. There's a certain there's certain like character themes that have just preserved throughout the series. One of those is Holy Orders. Like, there's some like all-time greats of the Guilty Gear series in terms of soundtrack. One of those is Holy Orders, which is Kai's theme, which has always gone super hard. And I think I'd have to re-listen to Magnolia Eclair, which is his theme in Exerd. But Roar of the Spark, which is his Strive theme, includes a really cool reference to Holy Orders. And then Baiken's original theme was called Momentary Life, which is also referenced in her Exerd theme, Rokumon. And it is slightly referenced in Mirror of Fate, which is her Strive theme, her new theme. Just a little bit in the intro. It's very subtle, and it's mostly in like the chord progression and some of the melody. It does go through like 3 melodies because it's a song from the Strive soundtrack, but they're all really cool. I like it a lot. So gameplay-wise, let me get back on track. She is the most accessible she's ever been. So Baiken's style was always the counter-attack, defensive play style, which people hated playing against because it basically made normal forms of pressure unsafe against her, which was very annoying, because you basically have to like play this style where you were kind of just maximizing, so you were minimizing the number of times that, like, what am I trying to say? You were basically trying to get her to block as little as possible. So you were only trying to go for hits that were more guaranteed, so that she doesn't guard cancel or parry, counterattack stance against them. Which is a very difficult thing to play against if they're good at it. And if you're interested in Baiken and you try and pick her up, it's very awkward because you are reactive in a way that no other character really is. Because Guilty Gear is a game about making the first move and being very interactive with your opponent. And Baiken is sort of not. She kind of jumps around, and she does have like things, but like that she can do that are more aggressive, but she's trying to goad you into attacking her, essentially. And they totally changed that. Besides, they basically simplified her whole parry mechanic so that it's a much easier to digest, just single stance. And then they replaced her gimmick, her whole like defensive counterattack follow-ups with just a brand new gimmick of the tether. So I'm just recapping all the stuff. So her moveset is pared down because of that. However, a lot of people are jumping into her. Sounds weird. A lot of people are just jumping into playing her and finding her really fun. So instead of having this counterattack defensive playstyle, she instead focuses a lot more on really scary strike throw pressure, because she has some really cool, very tight frame traps where, again, she's almost like still baiting you into like hitting a button, except it's so that she can get a counter hit and not like her parry, her like counterattack stance. Because her counter hit combos are pretty wild if she gets like if she hits you with the tether. The other thing, which is a little more subtle, but it's that they made Yozansen into a quarter circle motion. So Yozansen is this move that she only has in the air. It's a special move, and she basically swings this long metal fan, like bladed fan, around her in a big sweeping circle. She can only use it in the air, and traditionally the input has been forward, down, down, forward. It's a DP motion. And they've changed it to a quarter circle, and that's actually kind of important because there is a technique that makes Yozansen very strong, and that's called a tiger kneeing. And basically, in simple terms, tiger kneeing a special move is basically a technique where you have a special move that can be done in the air, and what you do is you do the input on the ground, you do just the motion input on the ground, and then jump, and then hit the button that corresponds with the move, the actual attack button. And so essentially what this does is the game is always looking at your inputs for... Basically, it tries to read your intents, so it's always looking for, is the player doing a motion for this move, right? It's always looking for that, and hitting the attack button is kind of like locking in that was the move you want to do. However, there's leniency with it, and if there's a single motion in between, like a jump, it kind of discards that and says, okay, well, now you're airborne. It basically checks, like, are you airborne? Yes. Okay, and within the last, like, so many frames, you input this motion. We're going to cut out the jump in between, and now that you hit the button, we're going to recognize just the motion and the button, and we're going to lock it in. I hope this isn't terribly confusing. But essentially what it lets you do is it lets you do air specials almost as soon as you leave the ground. Because as soon as you leave the ground, you're hitting the button, locking it in, and you're character is going to perform the move. So Tiger Kneeing is, for characters who have air specials, it can be a very powerful technique because it gives you access to very fast or instant overheads. And instant overheads is a term. It's basically an overhead that hits on the way up as you're rising. And they're very powerful because they're much harder to react to. You kind of have to almost just preempt it, essentially. Basically predict it. Predict that the overhead is coming. They are a very strong tool in a character's arsenal. And Yozansen is a big-ass move that is an air special, so you can Tiger Knee it. However, in previous games, because it was a DP motion, it's much harder to go from down forward to up forward in a tight enough timing that you can actually get the input, that you can actually successfully do a Tiger Knee. It's a lot easier to just do it off of a quarter circle, like a quarter circle forward, because you're going quarter circle forward, and then you're just moving. If you're playing on a stick, for instance, you end at the forward position, and then you just go up. You just lift it a few degrees, and it's much easier. It is much easier to pull off. Also, it's not unreasonable to say, I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that because this technique has existed since Street Fighter 2, it's named after Sagat's Tiger Knee move in Street Fighter 2. Because this technique has existed for so long, it's probably hard-coded into a lot of games, just engines, that leniency with jumping specials, right? So it's much easier to do it off of a quarter circle than it is a DP motion. So Baiken now having access to that is really strong because she's got some spooky strike throw pressure with these really tight block strings, either with her tatami mats, which hits twice after like a delay, which can make it really, really tricky to try and challenge her when she hits you with, forces you to block a tatami mat. And then also her command grab, the hook, the like heavy slash version of her command grab, really good for resetting pressure. I think you can jump out of it, but it's very spooky. And then when she gets a tether, she can really get things going because she can do some very... the physics of the tether allow her to kind of slingshot around the enemy and do some very ambiguous, am I going to go up? Am I going to go down? Am I going to cross you up? Am I going to do... yeah, basically. So the basic setup that people have been doing is get the tether off of like a ground throw, which causes a hard knockdown, and then do jump back, and then the physics of the tether basically slingshots you forward so you're directly over the opponent in the air. And then as you're moving, you do the air tatami mat, so the tatami starts falling on them. So number one, it forces them to block. Number two, when you fall, you are now doing a four-way mix-up, and you could go either left, right, up, high, or low. And the opponent is put in a very tricky situation where they have to pay very close attention to you and what you're doing. And then, of course, this sets up for more strike throw pressure because now she's hitting you. If she hits you, she gets damage, and if you block, then she gets more scary pressure. So she's actually like very, and the fact that she has this much easier like Tiger Knee Yozansen means that like she can be hitting you and then just get this really fast overhead. And I think counter hit Yozansen, I think sets up into a full combo. So she's scary, and she has some good neutral. She's got some good nooch. So she is cool. I've actually been enjoying playing the matchup just to learn how to fight against her with Happy Chaos. So yeah, I jumped in, I checked her out. I still am not into her new gameplay. It just doesn't click for me, but a lot of people are. A lot of people are jumping back into Strive and thinking that she's really fun and easy to pick up. And she seems strong. She seems just like her toolkit works very well for playing Strive's game, if you kind of know what I mean. Like, Strive has a certain style to it, and Baiken seems like she's pretty good at fulfilling a strong niche in that style. If you notice, there's a lot of characters who got some changes from previous games to Strive, and you hear a lot of the same phrase in like these starter guides, which is control space in neutral with good buttons. And it's like, yes, that is what makes a character good in Strive. Whereas like in previous games, like think about Xrd, Raven was overpowered for quite a while, and that's because Raven was really good at playing Xrd's game, playing Guilty Gear, the style at the time. Because Raven just had ridiculous pressure on your wake up, and he had a ton of ways to get really easy knockdowns and mix-ups, which he could go into knockdowns, and then just set up for this oppressive looping Okizeme that was really difficult to deal with. And he was stupid easy and got a lot of reward for not a ton of like work put in compared to other characters. Like, Raven was built for the style of classic Guilty Gear, where you get a knockdown and then you just make your opponent's life as difficult as possible. And he had to get nerfed and reworked and changed around a lot until he was in like an acceptable balanced state. So like, the phrase was, Kai is good at playing fighting games. Kai is a traditional Shoto style character. Kai is good at playing fighting games. Raven is good at playing Guilty Gear. Because in this system, with the way that it's set up, certain things are strong. The game naturally drifts towards certain tools being powerful, right? And other tools being not as powerful. Which is why Kai has historically kind of been mid to sort of struggling in a lot of games, because his toolkit isn't super suited for this knockdown Okizeme style. Now with Strive and its heavier emphasis on neutral, things like strike throw pressure are actually a lot more important, and what kind of like neutral pressure you have, as opposed to how powerful your Okizeme and your set play are. Baiken has kind of been reworked into that system in a way that is very... It seems effective. Maybe she'll go way up in strength, right? She'll go way up in tier with more development. But as it stands, she seems like she's tailor-made or built with this game system in mind, and maybe it wouldn't have even really made sense to port her directly, like from Xrd or even like XX, into Strive's environment. Games are ecosystems, right? I was thinking about this a lot, right? I was thinking about how characters... games are ecosystems, especially competitive games, and they function like ecosystems. So I was thinking about, like, what if you took a character or a mechanic from one game and just, with no changes, ported them into another game? So I was thinking about this, like, Chun-Li is really, really strong in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and there's another character called 12 who is really weak. And there's an interesting comment from a YouTuber named Bafael, or Bafael, I don't know how his name is pronounced, but he does videos on basically mostly Street Fighter, but other games too. about basically he has a series called Bad Balance, which is just why characters were extremely overpowered or extremely underpowered. And it's really interesting just to go into like the design of like why certain characters are strong. So it's good like background. I fall asleep to it sometimes. In a good way. Like it's a very calming delivery, calming monotone delivery, and all the videos are like 30 minutes. So he had a comment about 12 and Chun-Li, where you have the best character in the game and basically the worst character in the game. And he said that they were both added in Third Strike. So Third Strike is their only balance iteration, essentially, that we have to work with in Street Fighter 3. So he said he looked at it in a really interesting way, and he basically said that both 12 and Chun were experiments by the developers to see how much they could centralize a character around a few very specific tools and how it would work out. And it's interesting because Chun-Li is the best character in the game and 12 is the worst character in the game. So you have the most like extreme polar opposites of how that kind of approach to a character can work. So for 12, it's like they focused his gameplay more on like at most you could say mix-ups with his like glide dash, or his air dash, like glide thing, mix-ups, and kind of like semi-rush down. The problem is that his tools are just bad. And for Chun-Li, they basically focused her around a very small set of neutral tools. So she does have a couple good moves. So a lot of her moves are like kind of okay. They're like serviceable to mediocre. However, she has a couple moves and just qualities about her that make her amazing and that completely make up for whatever was lacking in the rest of her kit. And the number one thing that she has is she has low forward into super. I forget which super it is. I think it's super 2. It's kick super. It's lightning kicks. Basically, Chun-Li's crouching medium kick is a really good poke that hits low because it's a crouching move, and it can be canceled into her super, which does into her super. What am I saying? It can be confirmed and canceled into her super really easily for a very simple, like 40% damage essentially, off of one poke. If she has enough meter for super, she can get one poke and take 40% of your health. And that is why she is, in very simple terms, that's why she's the best character in the game. There's other reasons, but the reason you play her is to do that, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, like, this is a very powerful tool, because Street Fighter 3 is a game. You look at the ecosystem of Third Strike, and Street Fighter 3 as a series, or a sub-series, however you want to look at it, has some interesting things going on, namely with parries. So parries, if you don't know, parry is a mechanic where you tap forward, and if you tap forward and you would be hit. Sorry. How do I describe parry? It's pretty simple. Basically, if an attack would hit you and you tap forward, so do the opposite of blocking, much more high risk endeavor, and you tap forward within 6 to 10 frames of the attack hitting you, you actually parry it. Your character does a little whoosh, and you parry the attack and you recover way, way faster than you would if you had blocked the move. And it also negates all chip damage you would take if you had blocked, for instance. So parrying is one of the best things about Third Strike, but it has some knock-on effects. So the best things that it does is it basically creates constant unknowns, where one of the reasons that Third Strike has endured for so long is that it's essentially a game where there is no correct answer, because parrying has the potential, if you're good enough, to negate any attack. So the skill ceiling is immense and effectively infinite for Third Strike, which is why it's been played for well over 20 years at this point. One of the knock-on effects that this has in the ecosystem of Third Strike, of the game, is that it basically renders projectiles meaningless, because you can easily, it's so easy to parry a projectile. It's a single hitbox, you just tap forward. Pretty much almost every projectile hits once, so if a move hits multiple times, like Shoryuken, for instance, usually hits like 3 times or something. Big uppercut, it'll hit 3 times, 3 different hitboxes. That is much more difficult to parry. It's much more difficult to parry multi-hitting moves that have sort of inconsistent rhythms or that have very quick successive hitboxes. Certain fireballs, like I think Akuma, does Ryu have it? A red fireball, or an EX fireball, that'll hit like twice. So you do tap tap, right? You tap twice, or there's certain moves that hit twice, right? Like that. That's like the most, for most projectiles, that's all you would have to do. You just tap or tap twice. And it's pretty easy to get that rhythm down. I actually don't know if you can parry a full red fireball. I'm not super familiar with all the little nitty details of Third Strike, but in a broader sense, because projectiles are kind of meaningless, or, you know, you use them, but they're not like... Third Strike essentially has no meaningful play or no meaningful interaction from full screen, is kind of the effect of parrying, because of just like what it does to projectiles. There's no meaningful interaction from full screen, which means that if you want to get with your, you want to like, you know, deal damage to your opponent and win, pretty much every character has to get at least to like 3/4 to mid-range to close range and like scrap it out. And this is why Chun-Li is so powerful, is because if you try to approach her, she has this gigantic nuclear weapon of low forward into super that can totally ruin, basically just shut you down. This is also one of the reasons that Zappa is really good in Plus R, but that's a different discussion. I also don't think that the gap between Zappa and the rest of the cast is probably as big as the top tiers in Third Strike and Chun-Li, or top tiers in the rest of the cast. That's just a personal thing. You can debate me on that. Please do. Give me the engagement. So what this does is what let me get back on my train of thought. Choo choo. What this means, yeah, so basically that's, Chun-Li is powerful because of the system mechanics, the ecosystem mechanics, if you will, of the game. Now, imagine, okay, so now you have to imagine like approach options, right? How do you approach someone in Third Strike? You can walk towards them on the ground. You can hop towards them on the ground, which is just basically a short dash where you're basically effectively grounded the whole time, because no one's feet really leaves the ground long enough or high enough for it to like go over lows or something like that. So you basically you have 2 methods of ground mobility, which is walking and hopping, or dashing, doing a short dash, the dash hop thing. Or jumping in. Chun-Li also has okay anti-airs. And jumping in Street Fighter is generally not... You don't want to be doing it a lot. Because air mobility is not super big. It's not a big thing. Unless you're 12, or unless you're 12, ironically. But it's besides the point. So, like, the only options you have to approach Chun-Li are not great, and two of them put you at risk of getting hit with that low forward into super combo. Now, I want you to imagine, what if Third Strike had King of Fighters style short hops? Now, I don't know. I was getting this idea because I was maybe I could talk a little about KOF, but in a second. But hold on, I write a note. Okay, because I might want to talk about that later. I was getting this idea because there's a great video called the Incomplete Guide to, or Incomplete Beginner, the Beginner's Incomplete Guide to King of Fighters, I think is what it's called. It's from like 8 years ago, and it's really good. It's from actually like before King of Fighters, I think 12 came out. It's really good as an introduction to KOF, and it cleared up a lot of things that I had that just like I couldn't wrap my head around, and it helped me understand the game a lot better. So in KOF, there's sort of this unique rock, paper, scissors because of the multiple options for mobility that you have. So in KOF, you've got walking, you've got running, then you have 4 kinds of jumping. You have regular jumping, super jumping, which is just a taller, longer jump. You have short hopping, which is a short hop. It's a shorter little skip that your character does. And then you have hyper hopping, which is basically a longer version of that doesn't go quite as high. Short hopping is extremely important to playing the neutral in King of Fighters because short hopping goes over lows. So it has an interesting rock, paper, scissors where essentially lows will lose to a short hop jump in attack. Short hop jump in attacks will lose to anti-airs. And anti-airs will lose to a lot of low attacks because low attacks will tend to low profile them. So that's kind of the triangle that's unique to KOF. And then of course there's strike, throw, pressure, and all that, which is I think partially one of the reasons that so many goddamn characters in KOF have command grabs. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. What if you took short hopping and you just stuck it in Third Strike? What if you could literally just short hop over Chun-Li's low medium kick? Would she still be the best character in the game? And I don't know. If you could nullify that or put it on a much more even playing field with the rest of the cast, would it be... how different would it be? Let's assume that it works out so that most characters, at least, maybe someone like Hugo might not be able to go over it, but most characters would be able to clear the height required to get over her low forward, right? Is Chun-Li still that strong when that tool is much less powerful? And I don't know. I feel like I just restated what I just said. But it's interesting to think on, right? What if 12... would 12 still be as bad? Because he is kind of leaning into this... I mean, 12 has other problems, like he does no damage, and he has, like, 0 combos, like, at all. Like, none of his shit combos. The most you get is, like, a 2-hit. It's like you're playing CVS 2. In a game that is not built like CVS 2. It's funny, because CVS 2 has, like, rolling and short hopping. Oh, yeah, there's also rolling in KOF that I totally forgot. There's a totally other movement option. I think it's some food for thought, and I'd almost be interested to see if there was like a third strike mod that added that in, right? How would the meta develop? It's something that I think about. Maybe try and, I think it's fun to think on. Try and imagine like what would be the most game-changing mechanic to take from one game and put like competitive game and put it into another, right? Like if you could if you could like swap, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another example and like another genre that I have like experience on to actually talk about. I feel like in TF2, if there was some way to mitigate most classes' slowness, or to give them more mobility, that could potentially be like a big game changer. Because like that totally changes the way that you play like Demo Man, for instance, or Soldier, right? And it's also what makes Scout, like, it's what forces Scout to have the lowest health pool in the game, because otherwise he would be insane because he's so fast. So, like, what if you gave other characters... There was actually a good video from a TF2 YouTuber who said that he basically he did an experiment on a private server or a custom server where basically it was modded so that any class could use any weapon. So you sort of got to see the effect of having other classes' weapons on, like, Scout, for instance. Because Scout quickly became the meta. I forget exactly what. It was, like, Scout with... I forget what weapon was really... Like, what loadout was really, really overpowered. But, it essentially turned into a lot of... There was some variety, and it was quite an interesting video. But it turned into a lot of, like, Scout playing as another class, essentially. Just his speed with another class. Their weapons and abilities and stuff. And means. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I want to move on for a second, talk about Ed Boon getting inducted into the Gaming Hall of Fame. This is a quick one. Ed Boon was inducted into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame, which has such... Where do I have it? There it is. Such members as Shigeru Miyamoto, Sid Meier, Hironobu Sakaguchi, John Carmack, Will Wright, Yu Suzuki, Peter Molyneux, Trip Hawkins, okay, Richard Garriott, Danny Bunton, gotta give it up. That's how you know this list is legit. Have you played Mule? That's how I would approach women on dating apps. I would say, hey, have you played Mule? It was kind of like my, like, have you seen Tarantino? I would go, have you played Mule? I didn't actually do that. Mike Morheim, ooh, yikes. Bruce Shelley, Mark Cerny. Let's see, a couple others. Let me just run through it. Let's see, Dr. Ray Mizika and Dr. Greg Zizuk, BioWare co-founders. Tim Sweeney, Gabe Newell, Sam Hauser, Dan Hauser, the Hauser guys, the Hauser brothers of Rockstar, Leslie Benzies, Hideo Kojima, Todd Howard. The last few are weird. Bonnie Ross, corporate VP at Microsoft and head of 343 Industries, and Connie Booth. Bonnie Ross and Connie Booth. What melodic names to put together. She is the VP of product development at Sony Interactive Entertainment. And they have a few Lifetime Achievement Awards, so Minoru Arakawa and Howard Lincoln, Ken Kutaragi, Doug Lowenstein, Bing Gordon, Satoru Iwata, Genyo Takeda, the Pioneer Award, Oh my god, Eugene Jarvis! He keeps coming up! Dude, we went to a Dave & Buster's. I went to a Dave & Buster's for the first time on Saturday at that fair thing. Because we were just walking around. And I looked at all the fucking Raw Thrills arcade machines and I was like, damn. Fucking Skokie born and bred. I'd be fine with never walking into a Dave & Buster's again. I'd be okay with that. Ralph H. Baer, creator of the Magnavox Odyssey. And then Technical Impact, they've only got 2. The Apple App Store and the Visual Basic. Okay. Well, it's a pretty solid list overall. I mean, you know, giving Peter Molyneux the award in 2004 is much different from giving him the award in any time after 2004. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting to mention. Ed Boon is an interesting pick. He is one of the most... I mean, Mortal Kombat's the highest selling fighting game franchise ever. So it is kind of interesting because he's been there the whole time. And did they explain their reasoning? I'm curious. Yeah, the Academy, let's see. Co-creator will be honored. Do they explain it? Is bestowed on game creators who have been instrumental in the development of highly influential games and moving a particular genre forward. These individuals demonstrate the highest level of creativity and innovation, resulting in significant product influence on a scale that expands the scope of the industry. I guess you could say that for Ed Boon being, you know, Mortal Kombat being kind of a very big, like, culturally impactful game. I'm gonna need some chocolate coins right now. Kind of neat. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I should start doing that more. Asking for comments. Who do you think would be a good pick that's not on the list of recipients? Chocolate. I want to talk a little bit about... Okay, before I forget. Because I'm just in the game... Talking about games phase right now. Of my notes. I want to talk about KOF. So, picked up KOF 98 on Steam. And... After watching the Beginner's Incomplete Guide to KOF, I enjoyed it a lot more. However... Probably won't be going back to it. And the reason for that is very simple. It's that the menus are god-awful. They are terrible. And I don't know if it's a Code Mystics thing, because they did the port, or they did the rollback update. I don't know if it's them. I don't know if it's just this thing that SNK has slapped onto all their PC ports, because KOF 2002 UM has the exact same interface on Steam, and I hate it. Basically, okay, there's a few things that I have major grievances with. Number one, and this is the biggest one, right off the bat. The controls are screwed up on the menu. So there's this bizarre... So, like, when I get into game... First thing I do is map my controls. Like, I'm fine with, like, the default controls are probably not going to be, like, there's no standard control setup for fighting games on PC. The same way that almost every other game just defaults to WASD. It's like, a lot of them do, but some of them don't. Where are the attack buttons? I like to have my attack buttons on a very specific setup, and it depends on the game sometimes. So, I get into game, first thing I do is set up my controls. And I play with a hitbox layout, which means that I have left, down, right on ASD, but I put up on the spacebar. Here's the problem. Spacebar, for some reason, is also mapped to start to the start button. Now, thankfully, you can remap up to spacebar successfully. And when you get into game, and you, even when you're on the character select screen, works just fine. Space is up, you know? For some reason, it is like hard-coded. This is like the one thing that is hard-coded into the games. All their games, or at least the two that I've played. O2UM and 98. UMFE, or whatever the full name is. Space will always be start. Even if it's up, its position as start on the menu always takes precedent. So I don't want to have a separate, like, I can't, okay, you can remap what the start button is, so I just remapped it to, for some reason you can't map it to enter, but you can map it to, I think I mapped it to like either backspace or like backslash or one of those. And that's how it works in game. But on the menu, that's not how it works. It might still, but like, I don't, I just use like one of the attack buttons for selecting options. I don't use like the start button. So what this means essentially is that in trying to navigate the menus, I can only move down. And if it's a list, I have and I accidentally scroll past and what I want to select, I have to go all the way down to the bottom of the list so that it wraps around. Thankfully, it wraps around when you get to the bottom. It's just because if you hit space to go up, which it is in game, but when you're on the menu, hitting space will select whatever you're on. And if you're not on what you want to be in, you go to the place you don't want to be. I hope I'm making sense. Basically, space, I literally cannot get space to be up on the menus. It only ever selects options. And it's really cumbersome, and I hate using the interface. And it's a pain in the neck when you're just trying to go through training mode. When you're just trying to do training mode, and so there's a weird thing with training mode where you go into it, you pick your character, and then instead of just throwing you into the stage, there's like no stage select. So what you do is it throws you into this menu, which is the same as the system menus, with a bunch of training options, one of which is the stage. And you just scroll through the stages only in text. They're only available in just the titles, the names of the stages. And then you back out of the menu, and then it's like actually starts the game, like it spawns your characters on the stage. It's really odd. It always starts with you out in the system menu instead of just asking you for the stage you want after you select your character and then putting you in the game. So like trying to use the system menu to navigate, like to scroll down to things like the move list or other options like for counter hit state, or to have them be jumping or crouching, or should they be all blocking, or I want to test out a combo, so you put it on every game has like a different thing, but basically you set it so that they hold block after the first hit, so that if you drop the combo, then they'll just start blocking it. That's how you tell. That becomes extremely cumbersome when I am not allowed to, like, it's on the bottom of the menu, but I have to scroll all the way down instead of just being able to scroll up twice to, like, select it. It's really annoying. And it's just a little user experience thing that maybe it sounds like stupid or petty, but it makes me not want to play the game. The game itself I actually was enjoying. It's got a lot of characters that I like. My basic team still like Yamazaki Mature Hydern, as cool as not in the game. And they're all cool, and I like them, and they have familiar movesets. The music is cool. Mr. Big's theme is really cool. The game itself is good, it's just the user experience of literally just using the menus. Everything else, I don't know why fighting games just can't get this right. The game is good, but everything outside of the game is a pain in the neck, and I don't know why. It's just let me get into the game and make it smooth and as easy as possible, and just stop with these weird oversights. Next thing I want to talk about, and probably our last topic for the day, Risk of Rain 2. I have been playing a lot of it recently. How much do I have on record? I actually have it up right now. I have it up right now. Do I have 158 fucking hours? Oh, it's probably some of those hours are because I left it on overnight. But I've been playing quite a bit of it recently. Thank you, Max. Max bought this for me. I am not the most experienced in roguelikes. I have played a bit of Rogue, the original, and I do like that game quite a bit. But I'm actually not very experienced in everything that Rogue inspired. So, I really enjoy Roar 2. Rawr 2. Risk, if you're not familiar, Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelike with some roguelite elements. That's essentially, you are a little space person, and there's a bunch of different playable characters. You start off with, I think 4, and you can unlock more by getting certain achievements or doing certain things. And then every one of them has a couple different abilities. They have like a primary, secondary fire, and then 2, if I'm not... Yeah, and then 2 abilities on their like special ability. They have like names for them. I don't know. And also, oh yeah, they also have like passive abilities. Shockingly similar to Overwatch. But nothing like an ultimate or something like that. And then you have another slot for like equipment, like an equipment item, like an active use item that you can find around the world. So essentially, you drop down a little pod on the first level. You go around killing enemies, collecting gold, opening crates with your gold, collecting items. And at the end of every level, or not at the end, but there's always a little altar at the level that basically you activate it and it summons the boss, and then after the boss is killed, you it opens up a portal to, or you can go back to the altar to go to the next level. And I think there's 5 levels. You go through 5 levels in a run, but there's more. So like it's sort of structured in a way where the first level will be like one of 2. I'll just call them planets. They're like the environments. The first level will always be one of 2 planets. The second level will always be one of 2 planets. The third level will always be like one of 2, and so on and so forth. So there's like a couple different stages that you could roll essentially for any given run. Actually, I think there's like 3. I forget how many per level there are. Different, options. And then there's secret stages that you get. You can access through different means. It's a game where it's really fun to find things. Pardon me. It's a game where, like, I remember when I first started kind of digging into it, I was like, oh, so most of the levels are pretty much the same. Some of them have, like, all of them have variations, as far as I'm aware. Most of them, at least, have variations, where the planet could have this different layout. Some of them are very like noticeable and extreme, where like, okay, well, this version of the planet is way different than another version. Some of them only have like minor changes, and there's some I don't know if they have any variations at all. I'd have to double check. But there was a little like, oh, okay, well, there's only so many. But when I started kind of like actually playing the game, number one, having consistent layouts for levels was actually quite helpful. And number two, there's enough secrets. They're very dense and like, how would I say, consciously designed, so that when you start looking around, you start picking up on secrets. Like one of the second stages is called Wetland Aspect. And it's this kind of like, the planet, it's kind of like this muddy, swampy, very brown environment. And part of it is there's just a big cliff that just drops off into nothing. And I noticed while I was like running around, I noticed that on the cliff side, like down in the wall of the cliff side, where, you know, normally there would be nothing else, it would just be a sheer drop. There was actually like a little like tree root, and I noticed like it looked like there was a bit of almost like a cave or a platform. So I dropped down there, and indeed there was. And you kind of go through this long series of tunnels, and then you end up at a little hidden thing that, what does it give you? It's like a little skeleton, from what I remember, that's like chained up or something like that. I mean, I have the wiki up actually right now, because I was doing some completionizing, some completionite. So the Wetland Aspect, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So the altar to Inkuhana. Inkuhana. So there's a little skeleton, and then if you hit the skeleton, you basically get access to a new item that can drop, like a new, like really good item that like shoots out horns. Fires. Yeah. So basically, when you, I'm thinking of a different one. When you heal, after you heal a certain amount, it'll shoot out a little projectile. So there's that. There's like certain areas that certain things that carry over, which is the rogue light elements, and that would be, namely, you can unlock things like that. For instance, you can unlock things like items or encounter enemies, and now they will appear in later runs. So it kind of like slowly expands. There's also, you know, I guess I don't think unlocking characters really counts as roguelite, but one thing that I literally just learned today was a system called lunar coins. So basically, there's gold, and then there's like every enemy has like a 0.5% chance to drop a thing called a lunar coin. And basically those are little special currencies that you can pay at like an altar in every stage. And then when you, if you pay a coin to the altar, once you beat the boss, a bonus portal will open up, and you go into that one, and you end up in a secret shop where you can get some items that usually come with some kind of a drawback. They have like a very powerful thing. It's kind of like a monkey's paw thing. Like there's one you deal double damage, but it halves your maximum health, that kind of thing. So there's that, and there's also a character that you can only get by paying with 10 Luna coins. And I was trying to figure out, how the heck do I get 10 lunar coins? Then I found out, I didn't even notice this, they carry over between runs. So if you just don't spend them then you'll have them in the next run, and all you need is 11 coins, one for the altar, and then 10 to buy the new character. And then you have to beat the boss, which was I was struggling with, surprisingly. I was like, why is this the time that I'm having trouble? And yeah, the characters are pretty diverse. There's some really interesting differences in playstyle. A character that I really latched onto is called Loader. Loader is kind of, when I think about it, so let me describe her tool set. So basically, she's in a big mech suit, and she's a punchy person. And unlike almost every other character in the game, she is entirely melee based, pretty much. So her basic attack is just, her primary fire is just punching, and then she has that's it. So she is also the slowest, I think, like, or maybe not the slowest, but she has very slow base movement speed. However, she has 2 moves, one of which is a grapple hook, or it's more like a tether that it sort of functions like both. It has some momentum, but basically a Spider-Man web shot. And another move that is a punch that you charge up, and you can charge it up, and at full charge you fly. You can go really far. It's a charged, like, dash zoom punch, and both of these abilities combined make you incredibly mobile. And this, so she has a few other things I should mention. When she does damage, like her melee damage, she gains a shield, so that's good. And then she have a little pylon, basically drone, that you can release that will do, it'll every, like, for the next couple seconds, it'll zap nearby enemies. So that's kind of like your biggest ranged attack kind of thing. But all of these things put together basically amount to this play style where you are slow, but the use of your abilities makes you super mobile. And you can zip zoom across the map and get where you want. Also, she doesn't take fall damage, which is amazing. You go where you can go, like, I feel like you can go wherever you want. And get up close to enemies and then start punching them a bunch and gain a shield and get stuff that items that heal you and stuff. And it's really fun. And at this point I realize, oh, she's just Slayer. She's just this game's version of Slayer. She's a character who has very slow, basic movement options. However, using their abilities makes them incredibly mobile to the point where you would never even be able to tell. And they're also up-close brawler characters. So, I find her really fun, and just recently I was going on a tear trying to unlock every character in the game. I have 1 or maybe 2, I'm not quite sure, that I still need to get. And I'm having just a ton of fun with it. Like I said, it's a game where it's fun to discover stuff because everything is kind of cool. Like, even the common items, when you start stacking them and their effects start multiplying, can be really good. Like, hey, there's an item, it's like a can, and it makes you run faster. And when you get like 4 of those on Loader, oh my god, you completely offset her, like, biggest one of her biggest, like, drawbacks. So really fun. There's the one that I unlocked recently, like the last one that I unlocked was its name is Rex. It's a spider robot with a alien plant living on top of it, and they've kind of formed a partnership, and they have dual. Oh yeah, I should mention. So every character has multiple. They have like a loadout system where, for your primary fire, you have like 2 different options. For instance, you don't have them by default. You have to get certain achievements to unlock them. But they kind of like they'll make some interesting sort of changes to the way that you play. So, for instance, the Rex has each one of his loadout slots. One of them, like for every slot basically. One of those, one of the options is the robot's attack, and one of them is the plant's attack. So I thought it was neat, and just a neat bit of theming. And the plant's got a bunch of like some attacks that like require health, and the robot's got some like support moves. It's fun. So far, I don't know what the rest of what he does is. Geez, is there anything else I want to talk about with Roar 2, other than the fact that it's good and I would highly recommend it? Not sure. I'm not sure. Fire damage in this game sucks. It is so annoying. It does so much damage. Gosh. Golly. It's really, really rough. Getting really strong happens somewhat often. Often enough that you know what's possible, but also not so often that it gets boring. And most of the items are really interesting and fun to use. I'm always a sucker for stuff that like heals you when you do damage or something like that, because I just love scrapping in games. So getting like there's an item I love getting on Loader, which is it's like a rare item, but it makes enemies drop seeds when you kill them, and the seeds create a little AoE healing zone for a few seconds after they plant, which is really good when you are constantly up close with enemies. Yeah. Just, I don't know. It's a cool game. It's fun. It handles really well. It just kind of feels good to play. Attacking is very snappy and reactive. There's a lot of nice visual. It's a very pleasing visual style where it's sort of cel-shaded, simplified kind of look, but shapes are very striking. Particle effects are very noticeable. When you get a hit, it's very noticeable. When you get hit, it is not always super noticeable, but you know basically well enough when that happens. Visual cues are good, sound cues are cool. The game gets harder the longer you are playing. So there's sort of like a risk-reward with sticking around to look for more items versus leaving so that you can get technically an easier run. I've never beat the game. However, I did play with Max, and he and some others, and they beat the game for me while I was dead and watching them. It also, it's co-op, so that probably helps. that might help if you're interested in it. It's a lot of fun. It's also a game that you can kind of play and listen to something in the background, or chat in the background with someone else. It's really good. I enjoy it a lot, and apparently they're adding a new character sometime soon, so very cool. I've been talking for about 2 hours. I should remember to... Is there anything else I want to talk about? Not really. This hasn't been a super focused episode, but yeah, it's kind of just what I felt like talking about this week. I hope you enjoyed. If you've been listening this long, thank you for listening. If you have a question, leave it in the comments below. I will definitely get to it next time. But please phrase it in the form of a question so that I'm not just reading your thoughts out loud. Look at my Patreon. There will be a link in the description if you want to pay me. Pay me money. And thank you. Goodbye.